Hello there guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna discuss some NATO politics. So NATO was formed after World War II, and the main goal of NATO was to be a defensive alliance in case of Soviet Union deciding to invade the rest of the Europe, which they had no interest in, but still. So NATO was basically formed to be a defensive alliance. If you're in NATO, and I am in NATO, and let's say Soviets or anyone else attacks you, that immediately includes me into the war that you're in. So it was always a defensive alliance. So Russians had this crazy idea, because they saw NATO as a threat, obviously, because it was forming mainly against them. Russians did apply to join NATO, and I'm gonna tell you exactly when. So in 1954, Soviet Union applied to join NATO, only a few years after beginning of the Cold War. So NATO did not accept the Russian request to join NATO, because that would literally fix the whole problem. Even the Cold War wouldn't have happened, because as we can see here, a few years after the beginning of the Cold War. So the Cold War already started, and Soviets were like, well, why are we even doing this? We can all work together. And NATO did not accept it. So everything, all the conflict that happened afterwards were pretty much on NATO. But NATO didn't really do what they were supposed to do, like be a defensive alliance that would defend their own members. They went a bit further away, as we clearly know. So one of the examples would be, I'm not gonna take examples like Vietnam or Korean War, simply because that they didn't really go to war. They were just sending volunteers, but sending volunteers doesn't make them volunteers anymore, does it? If I send you somewhere just because I'm your boss, that doesn't make you a volunteer. Volunteer is a guy who's like, I want to go and help. Pack your stuff, go and help. That's a volunteer. If you're being sent by somebody, you're not a volunteer. If there is a minefield in front of us and I'm like, you know what? You, go and clear the minefield. You're not a volunteer. I sent you there. Obviously, so they did send up. There was a lot of troops in Vietnam and Korea, and as we all know, it didn't go as planned. It didn't go very well, since on the other side, Soviets also sent some volunteers. Those were basically the wars to stop the spread of communism, and that's why I'm not gonna touch on that. That was during the Cold War, but I will touch on invasion of Iraq that killed over 1 million people. US killed a lot of people there for no reason. Nobody ever apologized for it. Doesn't matter. They were like, oh, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. He didn't have them. So why did the invasion continue? Because they stole a bunch of Iraqi national gold, because they occupied them afterwards, and they're still there. If you didn't know, US still has a military base in Iraq. Even though Iraq doesn't like it, nobody likes it, they're still there for a sole reason of preparing themselves for a war with Iran. Because they're very close. I'm gonna show you exactly where it is. So, here we have United States right here. And national security threat happened over here in Iraq. This is a national security from here to here somehow, because these guys have weapons of mass destruction. We are coming in and we're gonna take care of them. So why did they do that? Well, they stole a lot from Iraq. They occupied them for a while, took their oil, as Iraq had. I think it still has a little bit, but it's not much. And here we have Iran. It's literally bordering them. So US has some military bases around Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. They're all over Iran. They're just, even in Syria, US is still in Syria. They're all over Iran. So I'm telling you 100% they're preparing for war with Iran, as I already said, and that's gonna happen. So they invaded Iraq, and they were killing a lot of civilians, because killing 1 million people, I am giving you 100% that Iraq did not have 1 million soldiers. So they killed, let's say, about 997,000 civilians. Did anybody get prosecuted for that? No. They just went ahead and killed them. And this is NATO we're talking about. Mainly US as usual. How was that defensive? Did Iraq attack anyone that's in your faction? In NATO? No, it didn't. Did it threat anyone? Nope. So you invaded for no reason. Then they went to Afghanistan. Look at that, another country that borders Iran. And they've been there for 20 years. 20 years in Afghanistan. What they were doing there for 20 years? One can only wonder. That's what they did. So, again, Afghanistan, another national security threat, invaded by the US. And not only US, there were all kinds of NATO forces there, including Croatians, Germans, French. Everybody was there, not just US. Don't think it's just US. So the whole NATO. What NATO country did Afghanistan attack? Nobody. They're in the middle of the civil war, and you just enter there and start doing whatever you're doing. Not very defensive now, is it? Then we had another case of NATO being a defensive alliance. That would be, I mean, there is a lot of in Libya, and these are civil wars. So the wars are already happening, that somehow in one way or another NATO prompt, but still. Another big case was in Serbia. Now, Serbia was at the time, I think Serbia and Montenegro or Yugoslavia. I'm not sure what it was called. I'm pretty sure it's Serbia. It doesn't really matter. So Serbia had, as you can see, here is Albania, and here's Serbia, and there is Kosovo. Kosovo was, and you can say it's a country now, but judging by half of the world not recognizing it, and there are still talks about it, I would say they're still not a country, but say it as you will. You can believe in whatever you want. So Kosovo, Serbs got from Albania. That used to be Albanian land. There are still Albanians living there. So Serbia got Kosovo in 1912. So about, let's say, 80 years from then, 85, 6 years from then, problems in Kosovo started to happen. Mainly because US decided to supply and fund some Albanian terrorists they previously recognized as a organized terrorist group. They fund them and they send them a lot of weapons and everything to go in Kosovo and start terrorizing Serbian population. Now in Kosovo you had and again still have a lot of Albanians, like majority are ethnic Albanians, and some of them are also ethnic Serbs. This problem continues to this day. So, after about 80 years of Serbia holding Kosovo, it never got rid of Albanians that lived there. They all lived together. That was not a problem. Serbia never had any problem with other ethnicities. There was a country called Yugoslavia that Serbia was holding. Belgrade was a capital of that country, and you had Croatians, Slovenians, Macedonians, Montenegro, Bosnians. Everybody was in this big country, and there were no problems with ethnicities. Everybody was treated the same. Eventually that broke up again because of some other foreign forces, but we're gonna focus on Kosovo because this is where NATO did their dirty work again. So they did prompt, US did prompt these Albanian terrorists. They did what they do best. They terrorized Serbian population, and we had, well, Serbia not being able to control it with regular police force. They got some army together and pushed it in Kosovo to deal with this growing terrorist group. When that happened, somebody on this island over here called United Kingdom decided to spread propaganda about how Serbia is getting their army ready and are going in Kosovo to exterminate Albanian population. So after 80 something years, Serbia just went insane one day and went like, you know what, we're just clearing them out. It doesn't make any sense. Why would they do, if they wanted to do this, they would do it way before. It really doesn't make any sense, but the world bought that nonsense, and US bombed Serbia from Italy, and didn't bomb just their military infrastructure. They bombed bridges, they bombed residential buildings, they bombed hospitals, schools, farms, everything. And they didn't just bomb them with regular bombs, but they bombed them with uranium-enriched bombs, which, as you all know, spread radiation, and over the years, a lot of Serbs ended up having cancer because of that and dying because of it. So, this was another case of NATO being very defensive towards a non-existent country. It's not even in NATO, it's not even independent country. It's just Serbia dealing with internal problems and you bomb them into submission. This is not a very defensive alliance, as we can see. Another more modern and very famous now case of NATO not being defensive alliance is Ukraine. Ukraine is not in NATO. When Russia started invading them, they were not even in the process of becoming a NATO member. They were just showing their will that they would like to join. Why is NATO helping Ukraine? No reason. Literally no reason. And if NATO has these standards that they're gonna bomb everyone like they bombed Serbia, why not bomb Russia? They're invading actual country. It's even worse. Why not bomb Russia? Where are your standards now? Well, there are no standards, they just do whatever they want. So when they say Western freedom and free countries and leaders of the free world, it just means we do whatever we want. That's the freedom they get. They're also involved in Taiwan, arming Taiwan and getting them ready for war with China that China doesn't really want, but wouldn't hesitate to send a few missiles over there if things get too hot. Is Taiwan in NATO? No, because all NATO countries signed one China policy. But they're there. Why are they there? They're not in NATO. Taiwan is not. What? Who are you to defend them from anyone? You're nobody. If anyone should defend any country, for example, like Ukraine, or let's say Taiwan, if it was a country, United Nations should come together and vote against the invasion. And if the vote was ignored, then all the countries in the world go against that one country. That's what United Nations is there for all the countries to vote for something and do something together. But no, this is just NATO. What happened 2 years ago? US invaded Haiti. Another war we are not supposed to talk about because it was, again, overshadowed by Ukrainian war. It's like, oh, those bad Russians, they're over there killing Ukrainians, invading them for no reason. We're just gonna go this way and invade Haiti, but shh, don't talk about that. Why did they invade Haiti? For no reason. I'm gonna tell you the reason. The reason is simple because Cuba allowed Russians to once again, like during the Cold War, bring their weapons to Cuba in case they need a deterrent against the US, to have something close to their borders, set some missiles, maybe even nuclear warheads, and have a threat, have a gun pointed at the US, while US already has a gun pointed at them. So we are now both at the gun point, so we might both back up. Also, Cuba did sell or lease, I'm not sure how that happened, but they gave some land to China, and China is not gonna use it for, factories or whatever. They're also using it for military purposes to once again, just like Russia, be close to the US and have a gun pointed at them, as they have pointed guns at China. So the point of Haiti, invasion of Haiti, is basically to hold gun against Cuba. Like Cuba is holding a gun pointed at, Chinese and Russian guns pointed at US, and US has a gun pointed at Cuba from the other side. So they can once again blockade them like they did before during the Cold War. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. So defensive alliance that invaded Haiti. Why? Did Haiti invade, attack, even looked wrong at some NATO member? No, they were minding their own business. So who are you to invade them? You are apparently a defensive alliance. You're not. We also had a case when Russia and China decided to build, so these big two countries decided to build some big radars in China, and that was somewhere around here in this part of China. And everybody freaked out. In the West, they all freaked out because why are China and Russia, they're joining their militaries and they're building a radar. This is a threat. And they went to one of those big press conferences in Russia where everybody from all the countries can come. And somebody asked them, some foreign reporter asked them about that. And he started laughing because, of course, he's going to start laughing. He's like, what? What is wrong with us building a radar? How is that gonna hurt anybody? The reason we are building this, and he said it openly, is because in Japan, US just brought their new missile systems. For what reason? So US Defensive Alliance brought to Japan some offensive weapons that are clearly aiming at China, North Korea, and Russia. So of course China and Russia, seeing this threat, they're building a radar in China together so they can see that when the missiles go against them. That's a defensive thing. It's not even a weapon. It's just defensive measures. And Putin was laughing like, well, of course they're freaking out over this because what they do, they don't say it. They pose a threat to us, we create something defensive, and they're freaking out. So how is that a defensive alliance when you have a bunch of offensive weapons pointed at all these countries you don't like? They are not a defensive alliance. They're just keeping all together. So let's say now in Ukraine, because the US is planning on sending forces, finally saying they're sending some troops, even though they're already there, like engineers that are fixing the broken equipment for the Ukrainians, or some inspectors that are checking boxes about equipment coming in and going out. You know, some troops that are just peaceful and they're not really they are active. We all know they're active. That's the kind of troops they were sending to Vietnam, and that we all know how that turned out. They were fighting more than the Vietnamese did, and as soon as they got kicked out and left Vietnam, Vietnam fell. So obviously they were the ones holding everything together, just like in Afghanistan. They're like, oh, that's peaceful troops. They are just, inspectors and whatever. As soon as they left, it took a week for Afghanistan to take back their territory. Like, what are you talking about? The same thing goes in Ukraine. So let's say in Ukraine tomorrow they send troops, as they are saying. They're gonna send some troops and create some sort of a buffer zone where Russia can't attack, because these are friendly troops with friendly bullets and stuff. So let's say Russia blows them up, as they will, and they already did. So the West is gonna be like, oh, Russia targeted our troops, and now that's direct attack on us. We are now defending ourselves by going to war with Russia. You're not supposed to be in that war in the first place. If I go on the street, like on a highway, and somebody runs me over, there is no crosswalks, there is nothing. I am not supposed to be there. If somebody runs me over, it's my fault. What am I doing there? The same goes for you. You stand on train tracks on a high speed railway, and train blows you the fuck up. Of course it's your fault. The train didn't attack you. You went where you're not supposed to be. So NATO, not a defensive alliance. So what can we expect from NATO? Invasion of Iran. How is that gonna happen? Well, Iran is gonna hit Israel, and is gonna hit some peaceful forces in there. And US is gonna be like, oh, they did it. They attacked us, so we are going against them. We are going to war. But they're not saying anything about Israel hitting in Lebanon a bunch of UN peaceful forces that are actually there doing nothing. They killed a bunch of them. Israel is fine. Nobody's reacting to anything. They can do whatever they want because they are good with NATO. With US especially. As a matter of fact, might even control them. I don't know. You tell me, because it doesn't make any sense. So, defensive alliance that's also bombing Yemen, that's bombing even Pakistan, that's bombing everybody in Sudan and all over Africa. I'm not even gonna go into that. There is a lot of countries that are still involved, including France, because they're the main people in Africa, but they're getting kicked out with Russian help to these countries. And they're getting really pissed off about it, but that's another problem. So yes, I'm gonna make this short. So that will be enough for today. Subscribe, comment to boost the algorithm, and I'll keep letting you know what they're cooking while you're not looking. I'll see you on the next one.